Hello. Welcome to today's session of Selling the Couch. I hope you're doing well, having an awesome day. I wanted to spend our session today talking about a phrase that has been shaping my life, my work, and just even the way that I think about both leadership and business. That phrase is quiet builder. Today's question and what we're exploring today is what exactly is this concept of the quiet builder and why this mindset is so vital, I think, especially important in this day that we're living in with so many things between economic volatility, political uncertainty, AI, and a whole host of other things. You might be wondering, can I really build something meaningful without being loud or fast or constantly all mine? I believe personally the answer is yes. And just to even start to share a little bit of a kind of a backstory, when I started selling the couch in 2015, I didn't know what I was doing on many levels, but I knew in my heart that I didn't want to do business the way that everyone else seemed to be doing it, or what seemed to be often emphasized as a society's definition of success in business and success in entrepreneurship. I didn't have a business degree or a marketing degree. In fact, I had never taken a business or marketing class in either undergrad or grad school. I am not a particularly loud person. I wasn't on social media every day. I like connecting on social media, but the thought of being on there that easily accessible at all hours of a day, to be honest, that just feels so overwhelming. And I wasn't willing to sacrifice my own family life, my relationships, my health for the sake of business growth. In other words, I didn't want to create this optic of being super successful in business, but then not having it put together either on the home front or with regard to my health. What I really wanted was a more holistic definition of what all of that could look like. As I even thought about when I first started STC, I looked to mentors, as most of us do, and everyone around me was saying, you've got to hustle, you've got to show up everywhere, you've got to build fast, break things, because that's the only way to sort of figure out stuff. And I definitely think there's wisdom to it. And this other common message was, if you don't do those things, you're going to get left behind. And obviously I didn't want to get left behind. And so I embraced that sort of mindset in the early days of STC. But what I actually found is I was more stressed and more overwhelmed. My anxiety and depression started coming back very rapidly, and I started dealing really with bouts of insomnia and things like that. And I just kind of realized it made me question about whether this was the way that I wanted to both show up in the world but also build my business. About 3 years after I started STC, I became a dad. Our daughter was actually born 8 weeks premature, and she ended up being in the NICU for about 2.5 weeks. Fortunately, given, being 8 weeks early, did really well in the NICU. But around the time where she should have been sitting up, she was not sitting up. And this happens a lot of times with NICU babies, in that their muscles are not fully developed. And so her back muscles were not developed at the level they should have been because of her premature birth. So fortunately, we had some wonderful physicians. We were on it as parents, and she ended up needing almost a year of early childhood intervention. So we basically had a physical therapist coming into our home. This was, again, 3 times a week appointments and all of those things. I just knew in my gut I couldn't build a business that demanded more than I had to give. So I began to ask this really different question. What if I built slower but more deeply? What if I designed a business that could thrive with my life, not in competition with it? That question became the quiet blueprint for everything I do. And over time, I realized I wasn't the only one that was building this way or wanted to build this way. So, in today's episode, I wanted to share with you the three marks, what I have found over this past decade plus of what I call a quiet builder. So, one is quiet builders create from depth, not noise. Let me actually share the other 2 points as well, just so you have a framework to look at things. But number two is quiet builders design their businesses around their lives, not the other way around. And number three is quiet builders play the long game. So let's dive back into number one, which is quiet builders create from depth, not noise. So there's this real push, I think, especially as social media continues to permeate all aspects of our lives. And as these sort of new platforms emerge, right? So even as I'm recording this, video shorts, right? Something that captures attention very quickly, but then keeps you kind of immersed in there for long periods of time. When there are platforms like that, the underlying kind of assumption is visibility is really important, and visibility is very fickle. And if you don't chase visibility, then something is wrong with you as a founder or a leader or a therapist in private practice, or a therapist that's entering into thought leadership. So things like speaking and courses and writing books. What quiet builders, what I have found is instead they focus on creating things that actually help people and let the work speak for itself. So what does this actually look like in terms of practically? What I have found is they focus a lot on long form content. So this could be things like podcast episodes, things that allow depth and connection and nuances to be spoken and to be heard. They also focus on things like long form content like YouTube. They focus on things like courses or coaching that is not just about hitting revenue numbers, but that truly changes lives. So oftentimes it's not about the volume, it's about the resonance, right? And that kind of impact, what I found is it really sticks around. And so you probably even have noticed this with STC. And to be honest, this has been a growth edge for me because, again, I fell into that sort of hustle grind in the early days of STC and with this podcast. And so oftentimes what I would do is record at all, just throughout the year. And it was a quick formula for burnout. And what I also quickly realized is I just didn't want to keep creating content just to feed an algorithm or push my download numbers up. What I really wanted to do was pace it around the life. And so what I've transitioned to over the past several years is I basically release live podcast episodes around our daughter's school schedule. And when she is in school, I generally do 2 months of live episodes and then 1 month of a break from episodes, where I actually use that 1 month to actually record about 2 months ahead. So that really I'm taking about a 2-month break from podcast episodes. To me, it's like a very much more sustainable way of building. The STC podcast reached 10 years this past year. We just also hit 1.82 million downloads. We're now in the top 0.5% of all podcasts in the entire world. And I really do believe that this sort of a paced way of creating content and building a business is just a much more sustainable way. Now, at a deeper level than that, I feel like especially things like AI permeating and entering the picture where now content creation is so much easier. My gut feel on all of this is people will crave community and authentic connection and depth more than ever. That people are gonna at some point just get tired of getting infiltrated by just this like rapid pace of content creation.
Hey, it's Melvin. Thank you so much for taking the time to check out this video. Just wanted to take a moment to thank today's podcast sponsor, which is Alma. Alma helps you build a thriving private practice, but it's especially if you want to take insurance. And this actually might be a really good strategy, particularly during periods of either political or economic volatility like we are experiencing now. Even if you're a private pay practice, this might be something just to consider, adding one insurance company that reimburses the best. And Alma takes care of getting you credentialed as well as doing all of the administrative paperwork so that you can just focus on doing the awesome work that you're doing in the world. But more than that, Alma is an entire private practice support system. So they have a bunch of stuff. And what I actually wanted to hone in on was Alma also includes CEUs as well as peer consultation and clinical interest groups. So isolation is something that a lot of clinicians in private practice navigate. And Alma has a wonderful support network to help you combat some of that. You can learn more about Alma over at sellingthecouch.com/Alma. And if you actually go through that link and mention Selling the Couch, you get 2 months absolutely free. That's over at sellingthecouch.com/Alma. So we'll jump right back in.
Number 2 is quiet builders design their business around their lives and not the other way around. Most business models focus on kind of 2 questions. So one is, how do I scale fast? And 2 is, how do I generate the most revenue that I can? Quiet builders ask, how do I build something I won't resent 5 or 10 years from now? This is a very different question because this is like just a little lesson that I have learned now in this podcasting journey, which is, and this business journey, which is, it's really easy to build something in the moment and it do really well. But most people don't think about the, what I call 3rd or 4th level effects of that one decision. Whereas quiet builders really think about that. That could mean a bunch of stuff, right? I know that many of us that are listening are in seasons or entering seasons of caregiving for aging parents. It could also look like sabbaticals, intentional breaks, paced either throughout the year or on a certain cadence as the years pass. It could also be as simple as daily hikes or walks with your kiddo or doctor's appointments for your parents, right? It means building with margin. That word has become my word for many years now. I had never actually even heard of it except like the margins of a notebook or something. I love this word because margin just means that all of us listening to this are like high achievers. And so I think margin for me, it gives me permission to say, hey, I don't have to build and I don't have to hustle and grind to the 100% or the 110%. That there's actually wisdom in getting to like maybe 70 or 75% and leaving a little bit of flexibility, whether it's just for self-care or things that can happen in life. Because the goal isn't just revenue, which of course is important in any small business or if you're in leadership, like leading a company, but it's also the sustainability, and that's for yourself and for your business as well. Number 3 is quiet builders play the long game. They don't panic when trends shift or platforms change. They focus on timeless principles, service and trust and consistency. They don't chase virality. They are cultivating a legacy. So when they look back at the work that they have done in the world, they think, wow, this is awesome. I have now created a body of work that has not just impacted my life or my family's life, but also many people as well. And that makes them anti-fragile. So this concept is one we'll dive into in a future episode, but essentially this concept is from a book called Anti-Fragile by Nassim Taleb. And it's this concept that getting stronger in uncertainty, not weaker. So an anti-fragile person gets stronger in periods of uncertainty. An anti-fragile business gets stronger in periods of uncertainty and volatility. Again, the 3 points are: quiet builders create from depth, not noise. 2, quiet builders design their businesses around their lives and not the other way around. And number 3 is quiet builders play the long game. If this idea of being a quiet builder resonates with you, I wanted to invite you to join me inside of our brand new premium newsletter. Well, it's called The Quiet Builder. Basically, twice a month, every other week, I share a deep and reflective issue that blends personal story and emerging trends and practical insights for building a life first business. So it's basically for therapists, for creators, for values driven leaders who are tired of that hustle culture messaging and really ready to build something more thoughtful, more sustainable, and more true to who you are. It's very reasonably priced at $97 for a whole year. You get 24 episodes or 24 issues, and you can learn more at sellingthecouch.com/quiet builder. I'd love to walk with you in this journey. Have a great rest of your day, and I will see you next time. Bye.